Hi guys, Tugri here with a new video, and this video will be a TBC tier list video for TBC Classic Anniversary that is going to come out in January most likely. And a lot of people do like dungeons, do like to run heroics, and you will see a lot of tier lists about raids, about like arenas, about the high-end stuff. But I do like to make also tier lists about the stuff that you're going to do most of the time, which are like BGs, open world leveling PvP, and also dungeons, which is normals and heroics, which you're going to spam a lot if you want to get your attunements, but also if you're going to get gear and get into raiding, you kind of need to do some stuff like that. And obviously some people do like to run dungeons just because they like to do dungeons. So I'm going to make a tier list about that. Now, big disclaimer, the tier list is not going to be something that you need to follow like gospel. That's definitely not the case. I think I have my own opinions about specs in classes. Some classes and specs have a bit more regard for me than others. And I'll be first and foremost showing you a few comps that you could run in heroics, and then I'm going to do the tier list. So I'm going to give you a few examples. So we are on the raid comp planner, but you can see group 1, group 2, group 3, that those are like different groups that you would do in, let's say, your heroic journey. And depending on what type of class or spec you're playing, I'm going to show you what kind of comp you could maybe thrive inside of that heroic dungeon grind. So, for example, if you are a protection paladin, you have multitude of comps that you can play. I think like a warlock has always a spot in like inside of that group. For example, you could run a shadow priest to refuel the mana. Excuse me. You can put the shadow priest to refuel the mana of protection paladin. It doesn't have a lot of AOE, but at least it has vampiric touch, which can give you a bit more mana, but also misery, which will give you more threat, which is also cool. You could even run a mage, and there you can run a frost mage, or you can run an arcane mage or a fire mage, like depending on like again you're going to do AoE, but let's say you're going to run an arcane mage, and as a healer you could run a resto druid, and the resto druid will then put an innervate on bosses, for example, or like big packs on the arcane mage so he can pump AoE without any problems. And that comp is like a sort of caster cleave comp where you have your protection paladin, you have your destruction warlock with your shadow priest that is going to boost the damage of destruction warlock, boost the damage of the whole group, and obviously you have arcane mage that itself has also a lot of AoE, but you have your restore druid that is able to refuel the mana of the arcane mage with innervate. Now, I'm going to give you a disclaimer. It's not always because the group makes sense that it makes sense to run as that group, because to be frank, if gear is going to drop, you're going to have a lot of like competition between all these specs, even for protection paladin. Like if there is like a ring that drops or whatnot, and it's a good threat ring, which is a spell power ring, for example, then he will also want to have it. So obviously that's the issue with like those kind of comps. And realistically, I would not run such comps because if I'm a shadow priest, I would like to not go into a destruction warlock comp, because it just like it will eat my chances on like loot. Obviously, you don't need to think every single time about the loot, but it's easily one of the reasons why you would run a heroic is because of the grind, the loot, and obviously the attunement. That's something that you kind of realize by then. So it's not because it's a meta comp that you always want to run a meta comp. So that's for an example, obviously. You could also run, for example, if you are, I would say a group that I would run. I would be, for example, Protection Warrior, which is not like the greatest AoE threat tank, but it's like a good in between, and it has shield wall. So if you have like bigger packs and you have threat on everything, you could actually survive. You could run with, for example, a enhancement shaman inside of that group. That's very good. You have obviously maybe a healer that you can put. You can put, for example, a disc priest, a holy priest, a paladin, for example. You have like also maybe a resto shaman to get like even more totems inside of that group. You could like fix something, but I would say like let's say you're going to put a let's say you're going to put a holy priest. Let's say a holy priest in that group, or a disc priest. A holy priest is better to be able to do AoE healing, but that's not the point. You could run maybe with a BM Hunter here inside of that, so you have also another buff. And I would say a Retribution Paladin could fit that group, or you could also say, look, I want to have a Rogue, which is not like half bad actually. It has like if you're in combat Rogue, you have Blade Flurry, which is not bad, and you can do some AoE. This group, it doesn't have that much AoE capacities, but you're going to be able to do a smooth run without any issues. And you are going to be competitive with the loot that is going to drop. Like I feel like there will be something that is dropping for everyone. And that's, for example, a group that you could run to farm like the primal nethers, for example, to get like deep thunder, or like if you're like farming for your dragon small, whatever. There are like a lot of like things that you can do in heroics to farm, and you don't need to have a lot of competition in it. You could also run a resto druid inside of that group. You could also say, look, the protection warrior becomes a fury warrior, for example. Excuse me, if I can like do it like that. And then I'm going to, for example, take away the druid outside of that group, for example. It's going to be, I need to do like this. I'm going to put like a resto shaman inside of that group. The enhancement shaman goes away, and you go, for example, with a feral druid, which is also a great tank. And then you have feral druid, fury warrior, BM, and combat rogue. You have a lot of like things that you can do. And you may say, but why are you putting a combat rogue? Well, I'm not like saying that combat rogue is like, or like rogue in general is bad. I think it just is like a very selfish spec which has exposed armor, like improved exposed armor, but it's like still a very selfish spec in like the fact that it doesn't really have too much like AoE compared to the other specs. Like even Beastmaster and Fury doesn't have like crazy AoE, but it still has something. But I'm okay with running a rogue. I think that's like still fine, and it has stuns. It has a sap. Like for example, so for some packs where you want to sap, you can also do that if you want to. You have blind. You have like again like stun locks. Like if you start the fight with a cheap shot into your kidney, that's like, even though you're not going to do a lot of damage, at least the tank will like have an easier time to get aggro and to not get like crushed, for example. So that's something that is going to be helpful, and I don't think it's like a bad thing to have. For last like comp that you could run, I'm just giving you a few ideas, right? We have like we had a protection warrior, we had a feral druid tank, we had a protection paladin tank. Hell, you could even play with elemental shaman. You can go for elemental shaman with let's say evil boomy if you want to. Like that's going to be a very heavy drinking comp, but you can run that, and then you can run a holy paladin inside of that group, for example. And you can run I don't know, maybe a protection paladin or a feral druid. No, feral druid, they have already a balance druid, so I would go for maybe a protection warrior here, and maybe a warlock. Like that could be fine, or a mage, or you have multitude of things that you can do. And I think you don't need to play a very meta comp to have enjoyment in your heroics. Obviously, you can have some very meta comp, and you can probably run with 2 warlocks even if you want to. But like gear wise, it's going to be a lot of competition. Like I don't want to like stack classes or specs or like type of armor that you're going to use, because a lot of the times you're going to make the heroics not as enjoyable to grind if like said loot doesn't drop, and when it drops you are really fighting with each other to get it. So that's an example. Now this is going to be my personal take. I don't think there's a F tier. That's my opinion. There is also no E tier in dungeons. Heck, there might not even a D tier. Obviously, like I think Soul Link, Siphon Life is D tier, let's say that, and Pump Pyro is also D tier. I don't think it's like great dungeon grind like specs that you can play instead of like a dungeon. Like you're going to be playing something very tanky that is not really useful to be very tanky. And if you're like Pompyro, you're going to play like a 3-minute mage, which is not really needed. You could just play normally and do some good AoE, some good single target without going for that route. That's more of a PvP thing. So Affliction Warlock, I would put it in to put some differences between Destruction and Affliction Warlock, I would put it in A tier. It has like obviously dot damage, which is great, but you're not going to spread dots every single time. You're going to do Seed of Corruption all the time if there are like multiple targets, and if it's single target, you're going to still do Shadow Bolts. Obviously, you can like start the match with like UA, Corruption, Agony if you want to, or like or the Curse that is going to help. Probably Curse of Wreck if it's like a physical damage dealing group. You're going to reduce the damage intake from the dungeon, from the mobs onto your allies, because you have like Shadowy Embrace, which can help as well. But like it's not going to deal as much damage as Destruction Warlock, which I think is a clear S tier. It's like the best Warlock spec to like do crazy amount of damage. You're going to pull threat, but you're going to do some big amount of dopamine amount of damage that you're going to do. The same as Affliction, to be fair, but it has just better scaling, I would say, overall, by going Destruction Warlock. Obviously, you could also go without a pet. So obviously there is like DS, you can play DS Destro. That's most likely the build that you're going to play. So without a pet, you don't need Shadow Fury. You could take Shadow Fury to AoE stun everyone, but it's not really needed. But at least you can then sacrifice your succubus to do even more shadow damage onto everyone. So that's probably the play that you're going to do as a Destruction Warlock. So I'm not thinking about like 41 points into Destro. You could also do the same for Affliction. I think Affliction is a bit less into the route of DS because you really need Ruin. So you would play a UA, you would play without UA and maybe Ruin, or you would play with UA and without Ruin. I think Ruin is too good to be not like played, so you might just play without UA and go like very deep to get like the utility talents, and then go into a Destruction to help you with the crit damage that you can do, and have a 100% crit modifier, which can help. So again, those two, like, they're not going to play very deep. I think UA is not really going to be played. You can play Affliction, but it's not like deep Affliction. So now we have also Felguard of the Demonology Warlock. I think it's okay. Like I have tested a bit. I think I don't have a lot of like information about that because I don't remember too many Warlocks playing Felguard in like heroics. I don't remember too much like how valuable it can be. I think it's not as good. I think it's probably around the B tier because it is a pet class that doesn't have like the crazy like damage that a BM hunter could be, and you're still doing the same kind of thing as Seed of Corruption or Shadow Bolt or Incinerate. You're probably going to go Shadow Bolt if you're playing Demonology Warlock. That's not really like it's very hard to judge. So if someone can talk instead of me about Demonology Warlock, please let me know in the comment section below. But for me, it's going to be a lower like spec for Warlock, and I'm comparing between them. So obviously, a Warlock is still like S tier in general. You would like to have a Warlock in your group, but I need to separate the specs because they are not equal in my eyes. So we have now Mage, and Arcane Mage for me is, I could put it S tier, but I'm going to put it in A tier because it is a lower amount of damage that you're going to do AoE wise. You are very mana hungry. You're going to drink a lot when you're playing Arcane. And yes, your AoE is good with your Arcane Explosion. And obviously you have Arcane Blast that is dealing some immense amount of damage single target, but like you need to have a lot of mana or like pop consumables, and I don't think you want to pop consumables every single time. That would be a bit hard to do. So yeah, I wonder if it could be S tier, to be fair. So I don't know. It's S tier or A tier. That depends on the beholder, the eye, like again how you're seeing the heroics itself. I think Destruction is just better because you don't have that downtime that an Arcane Mage could have, and you don't have that much problems with mana compared to them, that they need really a lot of support to function. In my opinion, like in the same in the same vein as in raids, where if you don't get Innervate, you're not going to perform as well as someone that does get Innervate. So that's for Arcane. Fire Mage, I think Flame Strike is really interesting. Um, you're going to do a lot of like single target damage as well. You are going to be able to do some immense AoE damage from the get-go. For example, you're going to do Flame Strike into, like, let's say a Dragon's Breath into then a Blast Wave, and then you can do another Flame Strike. You can spam it pretty much. It can do very good AoE damage. It's very mana hungry, but I think there is, like, again, some people think that fire is not that good. Like, I don't know. It feels like people are down playing fire, and I get that. In raids, you're not going to play fire until probably phase 6, or like even Sunwell, and even then you can just like stick to arcane. But fire is like an interesting playstyle where it's a bit like niche, and it maybe brings a bit more utility to the fact that you could play destruction warlock, fire warlock with like hellfire, which is not like equal to seed of corruption, don't get me wrong, but you can do something like that. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting talk. I think fire. I Now that I think about it, I do prefer fire in the AOE situations than arcane blast spamming, arcane explosion spamming arcane mage. Then I have Frost Mage, which I think I'm going to put in S tier for the AoE aspect, and the single target aspect is a bit lower. So I'm going to put him lower than those two. I might get shot at, but it is very sturdy. It survives well. It doesn't have that much mana problems, but it feels like, except Blizzard and Cone of Cold, which is great. Um, I feel like you're not having the same amount of damage as you would have as a fire mage, and even single target on bosses that are not able to get frozen. You're not going to have a lot of like utility. That's why frost mage becomes like a bit more interesting. Like even like Wrath of the Lich King and onwards, and even then you're still like you're still playing fire mage or arcane mage. So I don't know. I truly believe like frost mages are very good at leveling and doing like solo kind of stuff. Like for example, boosting, but like that's got nerfed. But like in a very big like AOE dungeon grind comp, you don't really need to go frost. You could just like go fire or arcane and do probably more damage with maybe less utility behind the slow that Blizzard can give. Fire and Arcane doesn't have that, but at least it has like the utility or the fact that it does way more in single target damage that Frost Mage could ever do. So yeah, again, I could be wrong here. I think it's very hard to judge specs instead of classes, because I think Mage as a whole is an A tier like class, but I have to judge between the specs itself, because for me, Fire and Frost are not equal, even though I probably would take a mage instead of like, let's say, this Demonology Warlock. Even like the spec, I would take Frost Mage over Demonology Warlock, but it's just like hard. You cannot really put them on the same row as Arcane and Fire if I feel like Frost is a bit lower. But anyways, Arms Warrior is, to be fair, decent. Like I think it's not like you can play sweeping strikes, so you can do that. You don't need to go like the whole way in arms. You get sweeping strikes, and if you go two-hander, you could also go kebab, but you can go two-hander, and those sweeping strikes are going to hit very hard. Like you're going to do some immense amount of AOE damage, and you have some very big CDs between Death Wish, sweeping strikes. You can also wreck in some fights, like in some AoE pools where you're going to decimate everything. I really appreciate an Arms Warrior. And that might be biased because I am a warrior, but I don't mind getting an Arms Warrior for those big pulls. Fury Warrior is also good, don't get me wrong. Um, but I feel like Arms is like in AoE very very strong. While in single target I would take a Fury over Arms, but in a pure AoE situation with sweeping strikes, having a two-hander for example, that hits very hard with Whirlwind, getting like double hits like that is crazy. And you would go swords if you really want to do like PvE. And you think about only PvE, you go swords and you get like sword spec, and that's a lot of damage as well. Mace is better for PvP. but in PvE, with like if you have a Wind Fury totem with you, that could be immense amount of damage by itself. And I do appreciate arms a lot, and I'm going to put them at A tier, regardless of the position. It's very hard to choose between like who's better between fire and warrior and whatnot. But so for me, they are equal. Like arms is really good and slept on. People just sleep on it because it is not a fury warrior. But in AOE situations, two-hander with sweeping strikes does way more than sweeping strikes with like a dual wield like fury warrior. That's not like that's not it in my eyes. But I will be making guides, by the way, because I'm going to play warrior as first class most likely. Warlock would be a close second, or priest could be a close second. But I think warrior itself is a great choice as a first character. So I'll be doing guides about it in heroics, in raids, and in PvP. Most likely in PvP first. Fury warrior, I think single target, they are S tier. I would say AoE, they're a bit lower. I'm going to put them at B tier. And I know some people will probably be mad about it, but hear me out. I think AoE situations, they're lower than arms. And even single target situations, you are blasting arms, but it's not like the heroics are not hard on the bosses. The trash packs are the annoying things to deal with. The bosses itself are not an issue. Like generally speaking, they're not an issue in dungeons. And you don't really need to pump that hard in like boss fights. Most of the time you're going to fight trash packs, and there is the AoE that is very important to be dealt with. So you either have CC, a very good utility, or damage, and Fury doesn't really have CC, doesn't really have utility, except like you can do demo shot and whatnot. That's good, but you don't have that much utility compared to like, let's say, a frost mage that like slows everyone, or like I don't know. Let's talk about like enhancement shot with Wind Fury, for example. Retribution paladin with a debuff on the target. Like things like that are utility, and then you have your damage, which is good in single target, but AoE you're not really going to be king, even though you have sweeping strikes, don't get me wrong, but like sweeping strikes with like one-handers are not like the same kind of damage as sweeping strikes with a two-hander with whirlwind, for example. So yeah, I'm going to put them in B tier. Now tanks, it's going to be very hard to judge, but let's talk about tanks in itself. For me, it's going to be an A tier, man. I think I'm going to spoil you guys. Protection Paladin and Feral Druids are like S tier, but like Protection Warrior are very decent. Like people are talking about Protection Warrior as if it's already dead. No, they're very good at mitigating damage. They're very sturdy. They are just the most tanky like class in like phase 4, pretty much. Phase 4 in season 4. Like in, excuse me, in Karazhan, let's say, let's talk like that because again the phases. Just in general, like first tier of rating, the tier 4, excuse me, tier 4, not phase 4. Tier 4 protection warrior is the easiest to gear up and to get like defense capped and hit and expertise, while feral druids are like they scale way better, and protection paladin are scaling also way better, but they need some sort of amount of spell power to function very well, and that is kind of hard to get. But even then, like protection warrior, just the easiness of being able to just tank with like little gear. You don't really need like the best gear to be able to do so. They are really great, and like single target threat is like not an issue in heroics most likely. But like obviously feral druids are better, but it's still there. And AoE, it's not fantastic either, but like it's still there as well. You have something going on. So I think it's an A tier for me. And now we can spoil directly the fact that a feral druid. I'm going to talk about the tanks directly. Protection paladin and feral druids are the better like classes to play. I'm not going to cover cat form or like feral druid like cat, because I think you should be playing tank if you're playing heroics. There is no reason for you to go cat. There is no AoE, like literally 0.0% AoE, and your single target is very good, but you could just tank and do as what like as good as like what you would expect, and you can farm the same amount of gear as at like bear form druid. Then you have a Protection Paladin, which is still very good at AoE threat. It's also very fun to play with a Protection Paladin. And it's also different, like in how it approaches the game and approaches trash packs. So those two for me, they are king in like purely heroics. I know, like here you can see the sign of a cat form, like druid, but cat druids. But like it is bear form. So if some people say, "Oh, why do you put a cat at S tier?" No, that's not cat. It is just bear form druid. But I just talk it like as a whole. They bring a utility. They bring the crit buff. They are like very tanky as well, and they scale very well to the point where it just is better than everyone. So feral druid, very good. Let's talk about Shadow Priest, because I think that's an interesting talk. In a comp where you have a protection paladin and a mage and a warlock, like some very big users, they are very useful. Like they're A tier. That's something I didn't talk about in the class picking video. I didn't think about. Yes, the utility of having the mana back is really good. But now that's like in very specific comps. If you're like playing with a feral druid, for example, or with a protection warrior, Shadow Priest already drops. If you don't play with a mage or with a warlock or with a mana user, it drops even lower. If you're playing like only with physical damage dealers, so let's say protection warrior, fury warrior, rogue, let's say I don't know, a enhancement shaman, not enhancement, no, excuse me, protection warrior, fury warrior, rogue, and then you play with a shadow priest, and then with a let's say a resto druid, which you don't really need a lot of mana to function. Then shadow priest itself doesn't bring too much. So for me, just because that whole equation exists, it's going to be between C and B tier, depending on like the comp that you're playing. And I'm going to put it in B tier because I am biased. I like priest, but most likely, if you are a shadow priest, you are going to probably dungeon grind as a disc priest or as a holy priest because they just tend to be better to get fit in a group. You don't need to do mental gymnastics to make shadow priest viable in a group. They itself doesn't do AoE damage at all. They have the same issue as, let's say, feral druids, cat form druids, because they don't have AoE. And they have just utility, and the utility is baked into like mana regen and doing spell power, like spell damage increase and shadow damage increase. If you don't have a right setup, it just falls down to D tier. If you have the right setup, it goes back to A tier. So it's a very hard spec to judge. And I hope people don't skip the videos ahead of time to like forget about the situation that I talked about. Shadow Priest is either A or S tier, even S, like not S tier, I'm not going to exaggerate, but A tier if you have like a mage, a warlock, a protection paladin in your group plus a good healer, that's great. But if you have like no mana users, then it falls down to D tier. So I'm going to put it in B tier because that's a good compromise. I think single target is fine. I think you're doing okay. You have great utility dispels, mass dispel. You have shields. You can also off heal. Your damage is not ridicule. It's just lower AOE wise. They're nothing. But like just purely the group counts the most. If you don't have a right group, then Shadow Priest doesn't really belong into that. You most likely are going to play Disc Priest instead. Let's talk about Disc Priest. Disc Priest is for me like a great healer, but it's not like on the level of Holy Priest. So I'm going to put that in. Like they have like PI, which is great. I like that as well. They can improve like a lot of the AOE situations. I like that as well. You have pain suppression, which like helps for like big packs to make your tank be immortal. So I'm going to put them in A tier. I like that fact. Also, like you have a bit of damage as well, and that counts as well. Yeah, I think in general it's a great class. Just is not on the level as like the other healers that have AOE possibilities. Holy Priest is for me S tier. Like the last talent of Holy is just too good. It just makes healing very easy. Like if everyone takes damage, it's okay. It's like fixed. Prayer of Mending is so good as well. Very efficient to heal as well. Um, it has a bit of damage, but like in general, it's too good. I really like Holy Priest in dungeons. While in contrary in PvP, it just is a non-existent, but this is like really decent. I like that. Um, let's talk about Paladin and take it out of the way. Uh, Holy Paladin in a dungeon, I am going to put them at B tier. They don't have like AoE healing. They have great utility. They are like usually not having mana problems, so that's cool. You have sacrifice, which is also great. You have like auras. You have your buffs, which is also like going to be decent as well. But that's something that I think doesn't outweigh the fact that the other healers are better. That's not to say that Holy Paladin is bad and that you should not run with a Holy Paladin. Don't get me wrong. I think Holy Paladin is like just a bit nicher. I think it depends on the comp and depends on what fights you're doing. And yes, you have Bob, you have Divine Shield and whatnot, but like it's not like, I don't know. You could like have obviously a bit of damage, but it's not like going to be useful all the time. Um, it's safe at least with Divine Shield. You're not going to get aggro. I'm going to put that in B tier. I think it's fine. People are going to be probably mad about that. I'm going to say all healers are S tier because you always need a healer. But like if you have to choose between healers and you have the choice, yeah, you would not take a Holy Paladin. I think you would be taking a Disc or a Resto Shaman or a Resto Druid even. So yeah, Holy Paladin. Retribution Paladin in dungeons. Doesn't have AoE damage. That's the issue. It has utility. It's okay. So I'm going to put that in B tier. It has Seal Twisting. Obviously, with Wind Fury, you could do a lot of damage onto the bosses. You have a debuff, which is also great. You have auras. You have like Benediction, so you can put Might, Wisdom, Kings, whatever. But like it's not like on the same level as the other classes that have no utility. It's very hard for me to put it in C tier because it's not bad. Like single target is not bad anymore, but it just has no AoE yet. Like in RAF, it kind of fixes itself, but like in like TBC, you don't have that. So for me, it's going to be a B tier for now. AoE is not like like it's not Mythic Plus. Don't get me wrong, but like you still need to have AoE. Like I think like having no AoE just makes you like last DPS most likely, even below tanks in most like fights. So I would just not put that very high. I think B tier is fine. We can talk about. I think it would be a decent time to talk about Resto Druid. I think Resto Druid is going to be. I like Resto Druid in dungeons, so I'm going to put in S tier. You have great AoE healing because you can do rejuve on everyone. You can put life blooms. You can do regrowths. You are very efficient as well. I like that. And also, you're going to play Tree of Life most likely, or maybe Dream State, which is also a usefulness at the end. So that's something you can like play around and have fun with. I think it's a decent, it's a great, it's actually a great healer. You could say it's an A tier maybe because you think like maybe Holy Priest and Shamans are above. That's possible. But I really value Resto Druid a lot, and I might be biased for that. So, I think Resto Druid is one of those specs that are like always going to be in a decent spot when it comes down to dungeons itself. And I would say also raids. Mark of the Wild is also very powerful, so you have a lot of like utility behind it. And Innervate is also going to help a lot of the DPSers to keep on pumping, which is something you need to know when you're going to pop on someone or not. Balanced Druid, on the other hand, I think I might just drop it in C tier. Hurricane, even though it's strong, it is still a 1-minute CD. If it was spammable, like a spammable ability, like it is in RAF, if I'm not mistaken, then it jumps. But if they make a change, it would be that change to be able to do like hurricane spams in Typhoon and whatnot. But you don't have Typhoon, you don't have hurricane spam. So your AoE is really bad. You're doing single target, but a single target where you have mana issues as well. Innervate will be for yourself. I think overall, it's probably the best C tier I would put right now. It just doesn't have the utility. The 3% crit is fine, but it's not like going to be game changer as well. So C tier is a decent spot for them. You still, like I would not be annoyed to have a boomy in my dungeons, but I would know like okay that the fights are going to be a bit longer when it comes down to AOE. Um, let's talk about Resto Shaman here. I think that's also easy clap. S tier, I would say above Holy Priest. Wind Fury, Wind Fury, Wind Fury, totems, 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 bloodlust, bloodlust, bloodlust. It is just too good to pass up. Being able to bloodlust every 10 minutes is going to be like very useful, and you're going to be bursting through the heroics in a lot of fights. I really enjoy like Wrestle Shaman. I think it's just is too much utility to pass up between your totems, between passive healing, between your Earth Shield, between your chain heals. It is just like the complete package when it comes down to like dungeon healing, but also raid healing. Like they're just too good at everything when it comes down to healing. Then you have an enhancement shaman, which I value a lot because of like bloodlust. So again, bloodlust. You have your wind fury totem. You do some decent damage, even AOE wise. You put a fire nova, boom. That's a lot of AOE damage. Um, it's not like the best AOE like spec, but it has like so much utility baked into the one class that has still okay damage, and you can like totem twist as well. Like it's like too good to pass up if you're like playing a Fury Warrior or Arms Warrior. Like I'm thinking an Arms Warrior with sweeping strikes, with like a two-handed sword. You're going to enjoy your time. Like and everyone that has like the possibility to benefit from enhancement shaman is just too good to pass up. So it's going to be an 8 here. Elemental Shaman, on the other hand, is going to be going into the C tier. Same problems as Elemental as Boomy. Just lacks the AOE. Obviously, you have chain lightning, which is not bad. It's a good AOE, but it costs so much mana. Actually, I think B tier is fine. Bloodlust, totems, chain lightning, which is still more AOE than the Boomy would ever do. Um, Obviously, it costs a lot of mana. You're going to drink a lot, but you have some decent damage, especially if you're taking your chain lightning and you get the procs. It can do some insane amount of damage to the point where you are going to get aggro. So you need to play around that. It's not bad. It's actually not bad. Like I could maybe put because of the utility with Fury, the totems in general, if you're playing with with a castle cleave or with a melee cleave, you have both utilities, and obviously you have good off heals. You are kind of tanky because you have a shield normally. So yeah, I think it's a good spec for dungeon crawling, but not like the greatest specs out of there because you have better specs here, for sure. And if you have no shamans, then obviously taking elemental shaman is fine. But if he has a possibility to play enhancement or resto shaman, they would probably do that. Um, Now rogues and hunters. Now sub rogue, I'm going to put them in D tier. I think there is no utility behind the sub rogue in dungeons. It's a PvP spec. Assassination is not bad, but it just doesn't do AOE at all. So it doesn't have Blade Flurry. It has good single target with Mutilate. It's okay. But it doesn't have like the damage that a combat rogue would have in like AoE and just like in dungeons. So I'm going to put combat rogue in B tier and assassination in C tier. You could still go combat and still go improved exposed armor, so you don't need to go assassination for that. And they have Blade Flurry, they have Adrenaline Rush, they have um, easy expertise as well. So I think it's a very good spec for rogue at least. And they have utility. They have like the stuns, the cheap shot, the kidney shot. They have obviously some good damage. You have blade flurry, so you have good cleave. Good enough at least to warrant a good AoE spot. It's not like it's a CD based like AoE, so obviously it's a bit annoying. But I do count the fact that you have like a lot of like CC that can compensate that, like a sap on an important target, for example, like even a blind, a kick. You have a kick, which is also important as well. Not everyone has a kick. Um, yeah, I think it's like overall okay. While assassination and sub rogue, they are just not that good. So I wouldn't just not do assassination rogue in dungeons. Well, now we're talking about the one and only hunter, and I think hunter is not going to be played in dungeons. I don't feel like it has a spot in dungeons, to be fair, so I'm going to put him in D tier. There is no reason to be when BM and survival exist. The survival is great for the overall group damage. So if you're saying like you're playing with a hunter with a protection, or a feral, you're playing with a hunter, a feral druid, enhancement shaman, or a warrior, for example, that's some good amount of damage you would get from exposed weakness. You have also BM hunter, which is probably the one that is going to be played the most. AoE wise, it is not very high, but your single target and utility is like still very good. You have like your traps, you have your pet being there doing a lot of damage, sometimes tanking a mob very easily. It has some very good damage. It has some utility with buffs that they provide or a debuff what they provide. So I'm going to put them both on A tier, B tier, because I think they're not like necessary to get into a group, but they're welcome depending on the comp that you're playing. And you will see a lot of hunters like spamming those dungeons to get like the Beastmaster set. I don't know if it's called like that, but like the set where you get like armor pen, which is super good for very long. So this is the tier list I've made. Obviously, take it as a fun tier list because there is no like science behind it. There's no logs to confirm what I'm saying. I have very biased takes, so hopefully you do understand that. And yes, normally all specs are a B or above. Some specs are lower because they have either another choice or they're a PvP spec. So that's pretty much it. Like Boomy is C tier because it just doesn't have the mana, doesn't have the AoE, has okay single target, but like a lot of classes have that. And yes, the utility that they bring is not like high enough to warrant. Very Fire is cool. The hit that it provides is also cool, but it's not like necessary. So that's like the point I'm having with this video. Again, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.